Right. Okay. So, hello everyone. Hi. So I've been doing a lot of research on Angular unit tests, and today hopefully you go away with a sense of what are unit tests, and like if you haven't like fiddled with unit tests, and especially how would you go about like starting a unit test or building a unit test. So my session is mostly going to be about creating it. So we're going to dive real deep into the code. So for any of you non-coders in here, I'm sorry. Okay. So, okay. We'll just quickly just go through these slides here. Okay. Okay, so these are objectives for today. So I'm just going to quickly go through what is a unit test, what are the advantages of using unit tests, what do we need to build them, and obviously we're going to create one. Okay, so basically a unit test is a piece of code that tests the behavior of your code, basically. We write code every day, right? Okay, well, I'd like my code to do this and that and that. But the problem comes when you have to have another iteration over that. Because now what happens is that when you go back to that code and you try to add some functionality to it, there has to be a way for you to make sure that the pre-existing code, the behavior of it, is not really destroyed, or the behavior is still consistent with the iteration that you're going to be adding onto it. So yeah, so unit tests are all about being able to test that behavior and make sure that the integrity of your application stays intact. So yeah, so those are the advantages of unit testing. It ensures the integrity of your application, reduces bugs in production, saves bug debugging for later, because since you've been doing unit tests, it saves you debugging time because you won't have to have bugs later. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like it saves you like from having bugs later. So, and also ensures the behavior of your application. So say your application is supposed to, I don't know, get photos or something, and you want to add a functionality to it of maybe manipulating those photos. It has to make sure that in your next iteration, the behavior stays intact. You're still getting photos. Whatever you do next, it's fine, but you're still getting photos though. Okay, so what do we need? Okay, so there's these 4 components. So it's Jasmine, Karma, Angular Mock, and Phantom.js. So Jasmine is framework. It's purely independent of any JavaScript framework, which is why it's good for using these unit tests. And Karma is a test runner. So Karma takes your code, especially your HTML. It finds your browsers. So you can have multiple browsers. You can test your code on multiple browsers. So yeah, so it takes your code, makes sure that it runs, and then makes sure that all your HTML is generated properly, without having to actually run your code. So it basically compiles it. And your Angular Mock and your Phantom.js browser, that's the default one you're going to be using. That's where your code actually runs. That's what we're using to run your unit tests. Okay. Okay. So let's create our unit test. Okay. Let's exit this. Let's exit that. Okay. Okay. This is a project that I created for these unit tests. It's pretty basic. I'm just gonna run it now quickly. But so this is what I've set up currently. So obviously it's an Angular. So all I have in it is my controller, my service, and my directive. I'm using my controller to make calls to the service, the service JS. So what my service does is it goes to the API, and it makes the calls for me. My directives make sure that my my movie card that I'm going to be doing is displayed correctly. Okay, I'm going to run the project now. So this is something that I intentionally, originally wanted to give a summer schooler. So as you see on the title, okay. Okay, so yeah, so I wanted to give a summer schooler this just so that they could have something to build on. But yeah, so I just ended up thinking, hey, let me just use this for my Angular unit test school session. Okay, so what this project is doing right now, it just goes to the movie DB, gets the latest movies, comes back, and then my controller sends my data down to the directive. The directive comes through, is like, okay, it's data, okay. Takes the image, takes the title, make sure that it displays like that with the caption on it. So it's just that simple. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure, so on my controller, I want to make sure that I test the behavior of my controller, the behavior of my service, and the behavior of my directives. So for my service, we're planning on not really diving into that right now. It needs a little more thought, but what seems to be apparent right now is that you don't really need to you don't really need to make an actual call when you're testing to the API. It'll give a lot of false negatives. So what our primary focus is going to be on is our controller and directive. So your controller, I'm going to be testing, is it actually going to the service and actually getting the data? Is my directive trying to display the data correctly, and is it formulating it correctly? Right, so let's go through the code quickly. So we'll go here to the main. Okay, let's go to the other one. Okay, so come here. So as I said, my movie controller comes here. It makes a call to the movie service. It gets the payload. It sticks it to a movies object, and all this is initiated within the first init. And so if we also come here to our directive just makes sure that there's an image there and a caption over there. And also, where's my There you go. And that's my directive over there. Makes a call to select the current movie. I'll show you that functionality quickly. So basically the idea is if I click here, it should show me that current movie. Oh, seems to be a bug there. But okay. Okay, so by default, if you're using Yeoman, you should get something like this upon adding your controller and your directives and your service, you should get something like this. So this is primarily what we're going to be working on. So Yeoman favors Karma as a test runner, and so what would happen is that you'd get something like this, and this is the standard way of writing a test. And what you'd have in your main controller by default is some area that would have a list of what do you call it? It's something awesome things in there. And then so here you have your before each. So your before each imports your modules. So as you know, Angular works with modules a lot, and that's where you would be declaring every module that you're going to be using. I'll show you how we're going to be using that in a bit, and also that way you declare your variables, and this is how you'd get your new scope, and yeah. So basically, this is the basic like template that you'd have. So all your tests would fall under that before each, and you could have as many before each as you want, depending on what you're testing and how you're testing it. So what would be displayed when? Okay, I'll show you now. Okay, so we'll start with. We'll start with our controller. Okay. So, this is the test for my controller. So, as you can see, at the top, I've said, okay, so this is my test, right? That is a controller, and the controller is the main controller, and each test you would describe in that it, and then you should say it should do this. So for my test, I said it should get one movie item, right? Okay, so the reason why I said this is because I know already that in my service, I'm going to be mocking this, and I'm going to be making sure that it returns one movie item. Okay, and as you'd notice is that I have this mock app here as a module. So what I've decided is that we instead of tediously mocking every request that's there, we should just mock each service and make sure that we create a separate module so that we can just import it and then we can use that instead. So I'll show you the module now. you could say it's a different project altogether. Okay, so you'd come here and you'd mock your services. So what do I mean by mock? I mean that your service will not be the original one, right? Basically, it's just fake data, right? And what you do is you'd come in here and you'd declare all that your service is declaring. So I'll just go up here. So my original service looks like this, and you just copy this into your service test, and then you'd mock it like this. Okay, so what would happen is that with each service, you'd have to make sure that it's attached to that mockup module. You'd have to declare it there with a mocking standardization of naming, and also your messages that you're going to be mocking, your data you're going to be mocking. And this is the important part here. Okay, so this is the structure of the promise that an Angular, an Ajax call returns back. So it has data, and then it would have results in it. So this is how you'd mock that structure, and then over here, you'd make sure that you return a promise that has that data, right? So most, like, if you do your research online, most people will just give you that you just declare that, and then you just resolve it to this promise over there, and that would just give you an empty result. So what we need for us to complete this test is for us to get those results, make sure that the controller is actually getting these results. And so let's go back to our controller. So I'm saying, okay, when I make this call, I should have movies in here, and it should be at least one in there. And you might be wondering what this scope.digest is. That actually allows my promise to be resolved. If I don't put that in there, it will never be resolved, and you'd be wondering, why isn't my test working? Okay, let's run the test first. Okay, no, sorry. Let's just finish up with this directive first, and then we'll run the test. Okay, and I've done a similar thing here with my directive. So as you can see, I've mocked my movie item that I'm going to be putting in my directive. Let's look at the original directive. So my original directive looks like that, and as you can see here, it's expecting a movie object, and it's also expecting that this has a function in it. Let's go back. And here, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to mock our movie object and also mock the select movie function. And here, I'm not really doing anything because I'm not really going to be using it. And here you mock the template that you're going to be inserting into your HTML. Okay. So what you do here is that you first generate it into an Angular element, right? So that's what you do there, and you compile it, and then you and then you run the digest so that it compiles properly. And then after this, so the whole point of a directive is so that it gives you the desired output that you want. So the desired output would be the image and the caption that we wanted. So the whole purpose, the whole behavior of a directive is for it to give you the desired HTML output. So that's what we are trying to test here. We're trying to test, does my directive have a HTML caption, right? You can put in a whole lot of other testing here, right? You can put in, when I click on my directive, does it generate a certain number, or does it do this, or whatever? Okay, let's just run it quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my my project, and then I'm gonna run grunt serve. Okay, it's fine. I'm gonna run grunt test. I don't think I still have time to. Okay, I think I do, maybe. Okay, so maybe if I still have time, I'll go into how do you actually set up it so that when you run grunt test, it runs your test, because it doesn't really do this by default. Okay, let's run our test. Okay, I will admit, it's a bit underwhelming when you see it. You're like, really? Okay, let's just wait for it to finish. Yeah, exactly. This sort of is. Okay, that's it. That's it. Okay, so now let's get into the fun part. Let's just break our app and see what happens, right? Okay, so as we said, in our okay, I'll just put in logs. Okay, so for our okay, sorry, console.log. I'll say this is the movie. So we'll log this, and then also like that. Controller. Okay, let's just run this one more time. Okay, I think it is run already because I set it to automatic. I'll show you that as well. Okay. Yeah, it ran already. So it's logging that. So let's go ahead and break our stuff. So what do you want me to start with? Controller, direct? Okay, start with our controller.
Think you want to pass something in the controller.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're expecting a controller to get the list of movies and put it in our movie objects, right? So let's just see what happens if I just remove this this line right here. Because mind you, this might be confusing because you're also mocking the response that you're getting from the service, and so it's a bit ambiguous of what happens. Whether are you getting it from your API, or are you still getting it from your service? Especially if you take like the exact result that you would get when you get the result. Okay, let's save this, and it should update automatically. There you go. Okay, so if you read our error here, so it tells us the controller, main controller, should get one item failed, right? Obviously, this is due to us removing the actual object that it's looking for, right? But besides that, even if it's something that it's not related to what it's looking for, if it failed to compile my controller, what it would do is it would fail. And so this is where your debugging skills have to be a bit sharp. And yeah.
So you remove one line, so you've now got a compiler. What happens if you like remove all of the line from that method, all of the code from that method, so that it doesn't? So I think in your test you were like testing that something is the length of something is
Yes.
one. What happens if you like have a line where you I don't know, add the item into that array twice or something, but make a mistake?
Okay.
I don't think you're ever going to make a mistake where you add. Actually, no, I've made mistakes where I've added things to arrays twice before. So,
okay, let's.
so you take it back to what it was originally. Yeah. So you've got the results. What happens if you, in the next line, append results to movies again? So, call shift.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So
That will work. That will work. You would have. How do you have it again? And then I'd say. Yeah, splice, yeah.
No, splash removes, doesn't it?
No, it adds.
The splash removes, so shift is what you want.
No, it's push, sorry. It's push.
No, shift removes is all there. Okay, so that's let's see.
Still fails.
Expected 3 to be 1.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So interesting error message. Expected 3 to be 1. But okay, cool.
Yeah, so I think what's happening is that there's actually 3 items in there instead of them just being 1. Okay.
That's nice.
So if we remove that, we should get something pretty again. Alright, okay. Now let's just go to our directive maybe and break that again. Okay. All right. Okay, so say maybe I think if I remove these, yeah, if I remove this, it should fail to compile. So yeah, that's basically it. And then do you guys want me to jump into how do you actually make it automatic or something? All right. Okay, so since we're using Karma, Karma has a way to integrate with your grunt, right? So what you do is you'd add another task in there for your grunt, so that when you run a command, saying maybe grunt test, it could be anything that you want. So when you run that task, it should do certain things for you, right? So I have a cheat here. Okay, so these are the commands that you need for setting everything up. Right, so your first command would obviously install Karma, and so you need Karma with Jasmine, and all these libraries make sure that you get Jasmine set up correctly, Karma set up correctly, and also that it partially sets up your grant for you. Right, so I had to run these commands, and yeah, so this is what happened. Okay. Okay, so this is one of the tasks that it runs, and it just specifies the port that you're going to be running on and what it actually needs in there. There's actually another part where you set this. Okay, so here, this is another place. Something I'm looking for. There you go, right there. I think there. So Karma lets you run your test automatically. So what you do is that you would just have to set true here or false for single run, right? So if it's set to true, so it will just run only just once, but if it's set to false, then it would run twice. And there's multiple places for you to set this. So yeah. So if you set it to false, it should be automatic. And obviously, let's just jump quickly to our config file. Okay, so you can't really do tests without having all your components that you need to actually test that certain piece of code, right? Okay, so as much as you need to isolate it from where it is, you need to have whatever it needs to run, right? So say my directive needs an image library, right? So if my directive needs an image library, I can't just test my directive without having actually to include that image library. So what Karma does for you is that it includes all these libraries. What you can do is that you can write a expression here that includes all the files that you need. So here there's one for Bower. So obviously Yeoman does this for you initially, but then you have to add more expressions to this. I specifically added this one because I knew I was going to have a mock for my service, and so I created that, and I knew that I was going to store my files in that folder. And there's a bunch of fun things in here, like what port you wanted to run it at. And so if we go to this browser, this port, so say for Chrome, if we say, wait, is it still running? Yeah, it's still running. So if we say localhost 8080, it should show us our test. Fingers crossed. There you go. Right. Also, yeah, so, and you can also declare here where it's run Like, do you want it automatic, or do you, like, how verbose do you want your logs to be? Just like our test there. Do you want it to be short and descriptive, or do you want it to be very descriptive? Yeah. Obviously, if there's like anything else you guys want to know, yeah, we'll have to do another session. But yeah, that's it. That's it, guys. Any questions? One question. When do you start using this? We're already using this. I've written a few tests for Smashboard. For those of you who don't know what Smashboard is a Fabric product that we're building, and so yeah. Come on, guys, come on, I'm ready. Is that it?
I don't do that, so I don't know what to ask.
Ah, this guy.
Need an Angular school session
Whoa,
first.
guys. Do you or do you not want an Angular 5 session?
I don't know what is.
That's fine. Like it's irrelevant at this point. Sure.
If you, okay, I also don't know on the web app, but if you, let's say grant serve, right, that's your equivalent of running.
Yeah, for running the project, yes.
You know, now when you're testing, that was a grant test.
Yes.
Now, if you do grant serve, is it running those tests at the same
No.
time?
No.
Like, can you configure it on, like, on Runtouch?
To do that.
And then to fail your build. Like,
Hmm.
basically how we do in .NET, you know?
Yeah.
Build a project. and your tests
First,
are
before
failed.
it, yeah. Yeah, I guess there's a way. But the standard is to just run it separately.
So
But
this is
yeah.
more for if, like, once you finish the whole feature, whatever, just run
Yeah,
the test
yes,
before.
yeah.
Okay.
Or you could keep it running. Like you could say grant test, and then you can just work on your project. And then every change that you make, it'll tell you, okay, you've broken a test or not. Wait, are you guys not asking questions because you don't know Angular? If that's the case, we have to.
Come back, teach Angular.
Come on,
That's
guys.
a session. Angular.
Yeah, hey. Guys, do you want an Angular session?
Feel it.
Hmm? Oh, I have to stop this recording.